Defense pick up one touchdown. Kick game pick up one touchdown. We got this game won.
So welcome back to Skuchdown Report, an all-inclusive deep dive into the inner workings of the Chase Estates Fantasy Football League. I'm your host, Austin, aka A-Dub, and today I have a very special guest with me. So on the podcast today, we have our resident football guru of the group chat. He comes from a family of great coaches. Legend has it this man, till this day, still holds the Newport County record for the longest time balancing a broom on his chin.
Baseball bat. It's a baseball bat.
Any long object, pause. He's a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who knows your favorite player in the NFL.
It's true. That's actually true.
So today I have with me Ozzy Osbell in the flesh, big dog himself. Welcome to the podcast, Kyle Bell.
Thanks, Austin. This is cool. First, thanks for doing this every week, man. This has been very cool to pretend to work for an hour and just listen to you update us on the Nugget and Zach and Ramondre and Harris.
Yeah, I think I'm going to steer away from that today. It's getting a little dull, and Nugget versus Zach.
Because they're both not great.
Both of them stink. Patriots may be dead. We'll get into that later. But yes, it's not very exciting over there in New England. But I'm very excited to have you here with me, Kyle, today. I didn't have anyone last week, and I was struggling. Like, filming by yourself sucks, so I'm happy you're here with me.
It's a long time to talk to yourself.
It is, dude. And it's even weirder trying to edit a video where I have to, like, watch myself talk. Just feels very vain, you know? So happy to have you here. So just to give you an overview of what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to start off in a different order. I feel like it's getting a little stale. So we're going to start off with the injury report. I feel like there's a lot of key injuries we need to talk about. It's getting to that point in the year where that's probably what's going to make or break your season. Secondly, we're going to get into the waiver wire and talk about which backups are most valuable and if they're already on people's teams or not. Then we're going to get into a segment called Top Fives, where we're going to talk about a few of our favorite top 5 categories across the league. Also, we'll give our reactions to just week 3 in general. And then we're going to look into week 3 matchups. So I always leave that until the end, but I think this episode I want to talk about it in the beginning because that's what we're here to talk about is who beat who, you know, which players are performing. So we're going to talk about that earlier. Then we're going to get into weekly MVPs as always, talk about who was the best players across the league. Spoiler alert, this week was very, very weird in terms of who was the best players out there. We're going to talk about bench champions. Also, a very interesting segment this week because the weekly MVPs were bench champions. Then we're going to give out some manager awards for the week, and we're going to have a week 4 outlook, taking a look at some of the matchups for next week. So welcome into the pod. We're going to start off with a little icebreaker here. Kyle, tell me what's your favorite sports movie, and why is it Little Giants?
Honestly, Little Giants is a sleeper. I would say this might surprise you, but my favorite sports movie is a baseball movie. It is still Little Big League. I don't know if everyone's not familiar with it. Don't pause the podcast once it's over. Go watch Little Big League. I don't know where it is.
Is that the one with the twins?
Yes. So the son or the grandfather dies, and he gives his grandson, becomes the owner of the twins. He fires the manager, becomes the manager.
I saw that. I was at a bar the other day, and it's a bar, so it's super loud. It's a sports bar, and they had like all these games up, and that was playing in like the bottom right corner, and no sound.
It'll just randomly be on MLB Network,
dude. And
times a year.
I was like pissed because I'm watching it, and I'm like, dude, what movie is that? It was pissing me off, and I'm so glad you just said it because I literally couldn't find it. But I'm gonna give that a watch.
Yeah, it's got like actual players in it, like Ken Griffey Jr., who's one of my favorite athletes of all time. Is like the bad guy. I'm not going to spoil a movie from 1994, but that's definitely my favorite sports movie. And the reason why, like I said, Griffey's in it. And it was just one of the ones watching, we still hang out with my cousins all the time. And that was just the movie that we watched pretty much every time we hung out.
I got to make sure I watched that. I literally
we watched it on his bachelor party. We had like 2 a.m, came back from the bars and rented Little Big League on Amazon Prime with this Airbnb. So
So the reason I had this question here is I watched Little Giants earlier, and I don't know if I'm just a softie or what, but I literally teared up when they scored the annexation of Puerto Rico. Like, it's been so long since I've seen that movie. But to give you my answer, even without a tailback, yes, John Madden wrote it up for them the way they needed to.
R.I.P.
John Madden.
Great cameo.
Yeah.
Great cameo. But Smith's in that. They got some good.
Dude, there's a lot of good
Bruce
people
Smith.
in that. But my top movie is 3 top movies because I can't leave any of these 3 out. So it's Little Giants, that's up there. It's Sandlot, because Sandlot's probably my favorite movie of all time in general. But I can't leave out Remember the Titans. That's like...
I was going to say, you only gave me one. If you were going to give me
okay,
3,
that's fair.
if you were giving me three, Remember the Titans is definitely in there. I remember going to see that. I forget what year, but it was middle school or early high school at the latest, maybe early 2000s. And just absolutely loving that movie.
Dude, it's a classic.
But then the best part is kind of looking back on it, being older, and Opie, Gary Bertier is Opie in Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
And Avon Barksdale, one of The Wire's probably my favorite show of all
just
time. Avon.
Great actors across the board. You know what I mean?
Yep. Hayden Panettiere's in that.
Yeah.
What's the coach is in a bunch of good stuff. And then, I mean, I just named four without getting to Denzel, who might be the best actor of all time.
True. So. I have a funny story about Remember the Titans. So I was over at my buddy's house. I used to live in Southern California, and his whole family doesn't speak English. They all are Mexican people. They only speak Spanish, right? And we had Remember the Titans on. And, you know, the night's progressing on. We're all just watching it, whatever. And then we get to the part where Gary Bertier like holds his fist up, and I turn around and his mom is crying. Keep in mind, his mom doesn't speak a lick of English.
You can feel it.
Dude, it's just such a great movie.
That's a good kind of way to sum up the entire movie. You don't have to hear anything.
No, it's such a great movie. Okay, so having said that, let's get into some fantasy football for the week. So we're going to start off with injury reports. And I don't have them ordered in any specific way, but if you want to jump in and give me any thoughts you have on these players,
I haven't really looked into too many of them, so so I've been lucky thus far.
These are some of the highlights for me. So the number one person we have for me was Dalvin Cook. He got hurt in the second quarter, I believe, this week.
Number one overall pick, Dalvin Cook.
Yes, number one overall pick, Dalvin Cook. So he dislocated his shoulder. Some key takeaways I have from this is, interesting enough, Dalvin Cook has dislocated his shoulder every year he's played in the NFL. Isn't that crazy?
I feel like once it happens once, it must be.
Yeah, so
you're just making it more likely that it'll happen.
Yeah, there's
crazy.
There's a bigger chance you'll keep dislocating your shoulder if you've done it before. So he's for sure. I mean, and the ironic part of this is I looked up some stats, and for the past 2 years, the game after Dalvin Cook dislocated his shoulder, he had his best week of the year. Isn't that weird?
It makes no sense at all.
So I'm sure you.
Do you remember? Do you remember the game? It was old. Like Emmitt Smith did that.
Yeah.
So it's a great old clip where he played the whole game with a dislocated shoulder.
That's crazy.
And ran for like $170 back in the 90s when the Cowboys were good.
Oh shit! So. You know what, Kyle? I'm so sorry. I've had you on the wrong screen this whole time. Let me go here. I apologize to all the listeners. I have had myself up on the screen with Kyle not being there. This is Kyle, by the way. So, Kyle, introduce yourself.
It's the same guy, Kyle. And I'm going to apologize for the users that you got to look at Austin. Now you have to look at it. So, I'm glad we don't have to start from scratch.
No, we won't. We won't. But so Dalvin Cook, and I was going to mention, I don't know if you remember Dalvin Cook, but if you remember seeing him over the past couple of years, he wears this like weird thing around his shoulder. That's the device he wears after he tears his shoulder.
Yep.
And he's worn it every year. So he's back with a passion. However, Alexander Mattison is on Nico's team right now. Who knows how that's going to go?
He drafted him too, right?
He did.
Good on Nico.
Yeah, good on Nico. I mean, it's inevitable. I mean, we look dumb now because, I mean, of course you're supposed to pick him up.
Well, it's funny because me and Nugget kind of had our back and forth about trading some keepers, and the big thing we talked about early last year was Mixon versus Cook. We didn't end up doing it, and then
you were going to receive Cook, right?
I was going to get Cook. I couldn't keep Mixon again. Tried to trade him early in the year. Nugget wasn't having it, and then he tried to trade him to me right before the playoffs started when I was actually shockingly in the playoffs.
Yeah,
and then it didn't really work out for me. It worked out for Nugget, but not me.
Well, I mean, at this point, I think Dalvin Cook's on Matty Will's team, so we'll see how he handles that moving forward. So the second player I have on here is DeAndre Swift, which is a big one.
What do you say, week to week? Yeah.
No, so he actually just got placed on the 3-game IR.
Did not see that.
So brutal. That just happened like an hour ago when I was typing this up. So it's a shoulder injury. It was obvious that Jamal Williams will be perfectly fine without DeAndre Swift there, as he had a great week. But damn, that sucks.
Did you watch Hard Knocks?
I did. I watched some of the episodes, not all of them.
He was just a big personality on that show, so a likable guy. So
yeah, you can tell he's like their big captain, like he's like their veteran,
an emotional guy.
Yeah, and he scored in back-to-back weeks. He looks good. DeAndre Swift's out a minimum of 3 games, possibly more. That stinks. I don't even know whose team he's on. We'll have to look that up.
Either.
But that stinks. You're gonna have to look to replace him. However, Jamal Williams, who is also on Nico's team. looks to be like he's going to be good moving forward. So that's the second injury I have. The third injury I have is a weird one, and I want your take on this. As a football player, third I have Tua Tagovailoa. And he went out in the middle of the game with a head injury where it obviously looked like his head hit the ground and he was concussed, right? Call a spade a spade. Yep. He went out, he came back, I think, 10 minutes later. And
I can't believe he went back in the game. That one, it was very limited on up here on what was on TV. I don't have the package, but I watched a little bit. Like through the highlights, I can't believe they let him back in the game.
All you had to do was see the clip of him stumbling after, right? Like
it's crazy that their doctors let him back in the game.
Dude, the fact that like Hunter Renfrow didn't even play this week and he had a concussion, like he had a full week, and then they let Tua back in like 10 minutes is crazy to me.
That was really that's like the whole point. I think they've been doing a really good job of it with the NFL, and in college of having like the independent spotters of saying, right, like, you're done. I don't care what you say. And he was, like you said, he was clearly. Could barely stand on his own.
So I put that on here. He's having
a great season. So
he is having a great season.
He could definitely be back this week, but whatever the protocols are, we'll see
so
how he feels.
That's why I put that on here, because I feel like the Dolphins are going to get like fined or something for putting him back in the game, and I don't know if he even plays this week. Even if he's fine, I feel like that's like you should watch out for it. But I have a feeling they're not gonna put him out there.
They play at the Bengals.
Okay, so he's playing at the Bengals.
There's no way. They're the Thursday night game. There's no way he. I think.
That's a Thursday night game. Yeah, there's no way they put him out there. The NFL is going to stop him from playing.
But they do have my guy as the backup.
Who's that?
Teddy Two Gloves is the backup.
I love Teddy Two Gloves.
Well, I also love Teddy Two Gloves, and I think he can be just as good in the Dolphins offense. I think they did a great job with their coach and
they look solid, dude. I hated on them.
I listened to a couple other podcasts, and a couple of them referred to Tua as a backup. And then he threw for 6 touchdowns. I think that game against the Ravens was a bit fluky, but
dude, I'm one of them. I'm a big Tua hater. I don't think he's that good. I just really think it's a great offensive scheme. He has great wide receivers, and
2 fastest in the league.
Right, like. So I think he's going to be solid. But I think if you put him on the Washington Commanders right now, I'm sorry to bring them up every time, but if you put him on the Washington Commanders right now,
talk about them later.
They're terrible. Okay, so that was Tua. Let me get into the fourth. So the fourth injury I have is Mac Jones. Which is pretty sad if you see the pictures of him leaving. It was a high ankle injury. We don't know exactly what it is.
I did that in high school.
Yeah,
that sucks. Ankle sprain, and so Mac is definitely. I think overall he's like barely above average is going to be his career. He's going to be okay for a while.
Right.
But the fact that he got up and got himself off the field without laying down or having to train, I love that guy forever now.
No,
so I'm going to root for him for the rest of my life.
I like Mac Jones.
Surgery.
I hated him at first.
I would say he's out a month at least.
Yeah, so the Pats, I had this on here. I said the Pats are usually pretty secretive with their injuries. They're not going to say anything, but it looked like he's going to be gone for a while, right? He looked like he was in pain.
That hurt. That hurts a lot, and it's his plant foot. I mean, either it really doesn't matter with that injury. But yeah, he's.
I don't know who their backup is.
It's Brian Hoyer, and I don't know. He's basically a coach. And I think that's one of the problems with the Patriots offense this year is he comes off the field and you got Joe Judge, Matt Patricia, and Brian Hoyer in his ear. And I don't think that's a great way to run a young quarterback. But I don't think there's much of a drop off with Hoyer, which is sad to say.
They got the win.
First round pick.
They got the win. I think the Pats are dead for the next month or so until Mac Jones can get back on the field. Do the Pats run the ball 90% of the plays moving forward?
What do they run it now? It's like 85, right? They just.
That's fair.
I mean, the craziest thing, N'Keal Harry was one of the worst wide receiver first-round draft picks I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Production-wise. When Hoyer would come in, and they had a couple big games of blowouts last year, and he would throw a bomb to N'Keal Harry, and those are the only big catches N'Keal Harry ever had were for Brian Hoyer. So he knows the offense. He'll get rid of the ball, but he's not going to.
N'Keal Harry's not on your team anymore, huh?
No, he went to the Bears, and I think he got cut.
Oh, damn.
So, yeah. I don't know. I think the Pats' defense is pretty good. Especially the way they played the Dolphins after looking at what they did. But Lamar tore him up, but I want to talk about him a little bit later.
Oh, we will.
Pay that man.
Yeah, for real, dude.
Yeah, I think the Pats defense is pretty good. They were missing some guys last game against the Ravens. That was a winnable game. Mm-hmm. And then a couple bad turnovers. And then, I don't know how that wasn't a penalty because it did look like Calais Campbell grabbed him and almost horse collared him in the pocket. But yeah, tough injury. He'll be out a month. We'll see what happens. I don't have much hope for the Pats winning more than 5 or 6 games anyway this year. They don't have the talent.
Neither do I, but I'm following them closely because obviously all you guys are Pats fans, so I'm a little bit more interested. And they just look like They're just such an interesting team because, like,
they're boring on offense.
Yeah,
very boring.
Yeah, but they got a good defense though.
Everybody gave Bill a lot of shit for the Cole Strange pick, and I know people don't really watch offensive line play very much, but that dude's a beast.
I'm sure you do.
He's really good. They overdrafted him for sure. Like, could have got him in maybe the 3rd round, but that dude, given Bill's other 1st-round picks lately, like, get a guy that you know is going to be a stud.
Hey,
that dude's a stud.
There was some other terrible 1st-round picks, so I mean, you'll take a solid center over, a dud. Okay, so getting into my 5th injury, and this is a coming back injury. It's Michael Gallup.
Mm-hmm.
He's expected to return in week 4. He still needs a quarterback. Cooper Rush is their quarterback.
Yeah, that game started right now. We're a couple minutes in. Still no score.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be a very good game, but he's expected to come back. CeeDee Lamb is on your team. He's been underwhelming.
Yep.
I don't expect Michael Gallup to do more, but I wanted to mention it because there's not very much to talk about with injuries, and I think Gallup's one of the people you got to look out for.
He's a playmaker. He saw. I mean, when Rush came in, I don't even know the guy was like a fourth receiver. I forget his name.
Yeah, me too. I know who you're talking about. He was their top scorer.
They work together so much on like the scout team and the second team that they have a really good relationship. So
makes sense.
I don't know. Cooper Rush is he's not terrible. They said if he wins, he could be the 3rd undrafted Cowboy quarterback to go 3-0 to start his career or something like that. So
that's crazy.
I think he's an underrated backup.
He's got a good chance against the 2-0 Giants, who are not looking like a 2-0 team.
I think there's a few fluky records going on, but
yeah,
it's
the Bears.
Very early. There's 15 weeks left in the season.
Right. Okay.
It's a long year.
So for the 6th injury, I have Jarvis Landry and Mike Thomas. They both had feet injuries. One of them had a foot injury. The other one had a toe injury. They're describing it as not serious at this point. But what I will say is what is serious is Chris Olave led that team in targets, yards, air yards, and he looks like he's the real deal. I mean, granted, Michael Thomas looked good too, but Chris Olave looks like a guy.
I'm still trying to figure out how they just brushed past the fact that Jameis Winston's playing with fractured vertebrae.
Right.
And he threw. I mean, he threw for 353, a couple picks as Jameis Winston does, but.
Dude, Jameis Winston is going to be Jameis Winston, which is what I love about fantasy. He's going to chuck that ball deep. You know what I mean? Good ribs or bad ribs.
It sucks. It does suck that he's got some injured receivers because he is a very fun. Just somebody's down there. Chuck.
I love Jameis Winston.
He's another one of just my favorite people in the NFL. He's a hilarious dude. I would love to hang out with him.
I started Chris Olave this week over Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen was playing later, and I didn't want to wait to see if he was going to play.
Still hurt. And
yeah, he's still hurt.
That's another one to maybe mention is Herbert.
Yeah, so
definitely
the next person I have here is Keenan Allen, which we just said. He's expected to play week 4. He has a hamstring injury which could linger. But he's on my team, and I don't really trust Keenan Allen moving forward. I think I'm going to stick with Chris Olave until he fizzles out. But something to keep in mind. And then also on the Chargers, I have Justin Herbert, who looked like he had no setbacks, but he definitely looked slower. And
I can't believe they had him out down 28 points with like 3 minutes left. He was still playing. I know. I texted you that I want to talk about coaches getting fired.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it a little later, but I couldn't believe that they left that dude in the game. That's insane.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I don't even think about stuff like that. That's for sure you having a coaching perspective. I just assume he's playing because he's Justin Herbert, but that makes perfect sense why you should take him out, Yeah,
but I think it is a good look for the locker room. People this. We have to play. This dude's playing too. But he took a shot the week before, and he didn't look right.
No,
from what I saw, which again wasn't much with 3 games on.
Yeah,
3 games on up here. So just watched some highlights in the morning, and he didn't look right.
No. And the last injury I have is the least exciting one. It's Zach Wilson. He's expected to play in week 4. The Jets are a boring team.
So I don't know when you want other segments. I have some stats that I find pretty interesting, and the Jets are involved in one of them. So we'll get to that. Throw
them out if you want to right now. Do you think it's something we should wait till later?
Well, just because we brought the Jets up, there are 5. I know we were doing a lot of things in 5s, so I'll do 4 later. But
okay.
You know that Joe Flacco has the most passing attempts by any quarterback in the NFL through 3 weeks?
Dude, I love Joe Flacco.
No, there's not one guy that has thrown the ball more than Joe Flacco this year so far, which is
I think Zach Wilson. I also think Zach Wilson is terrible, and I think he's going to hurt that team. Granted, Joe Flacco's not, Patrick Mahomes, but for fantasy, he's out there chucking that thing, you know, like, and I don't know if Zach Wilson's going to be better. That's a great stat. So that's the injuries for the week. Next, we're going to move on to the waiver wire, which is pretty bland, but I just wanted to highlight it because of how bland it is. It's pretty much backup season on the waiver wire, and currently our waiver order is Jim is first, Colton is second, Zach is third, Mike is fourth, Matty Will is fifth, which is interesting. I want to talk to Zach about how that gets formulated, but
I still don't understand. I will never understand the waiver wire.
I kind of don't get
10th.
it either.
I'm 10th, and I have no clue what.
Yeah, I really don't get it. I'll talk to Zach about that later, but that's the order. And I wanted to note that our league is pretty competitive because in all my other leagues, there's always someone you can go out on the waiver wire and grab. In this league, it's bland, dude.
Slim.
It's bland. So here's the 5 people I have, 6 people actually, I have on waiver wires that you could potentially pick up that look like they could be solid. So number 1, in no particular order, one's not better than the other, but the number 1 I have is Tyler Boyd. He is top 25 in wide receivers this year so far. Higgins has been banged up all year, and Jamar Chase is getting the Justin Jefferson treatment. Like, he is getting shadowed by the number 1 cornerback everywhere around that field, and Tyler Boyd has benefited from it. And he's on the waiver wire if you're hurt at wide receiver.
He had a big play for a long touchdown this week.
He's had a touchdown, I think, all 3 weeks, so he's been a solid play. Granted, the Bengals haven't looked like what they're supposed to be, but Tyler Boyd is okay. He's an okay pickup if you need a spot start at wide receiver, you know? And second, I have Greg Dortch. We're really reaching into the well here, but Greg Dortch is currently the Cardinals' second wide receiver. Next week, he has Carolina, which they're a good secondary, but after their first cornerback, they really fall off. So he could be a good start. And
AJ Green's hurt.
Yeah, AJ Green's hurt. He could be a good start for a couple weeks until DeAndre Hopkins comes back.
Yep.
I have him out there. That's really it for wide receivers. I don't know if you're looking and see anybody that you like on wide receivers. I don't really see anybody.
I haven't. I have one waiver wire, but I don't know if we'll get to his position. I'll mention him at the end if you don't.
So third, we have David Njoku. He's the only tight end I have on here. And if you're chasing a tight end, which a lot of people in this league are switching out tight ends every week, I mean, he could be good. You kind of want to wait for Deshaun to come back, but it looks like Jacoby Brissett likes throwing to him.
Yeah, he had a lot of targets in that. They were on the Thursday game.
Yeah, he just got paid also. I think he got a big-ass contract, so he's going to be a part of their offense. And if you're struggling at tight end, I mean, it could get worse, you know? So after him, I have number 4, and I love that I get to call this out, but it's Trevor Lawrence. He was...
It's crazy. It's crazy what happens when you get a real coach.
Dude, we'll talk about the Jaguars later, but the Jaguars are good. Last week I said they might be good. They are good. So are the Lions. Like, you need to leave 4 or 5 years ago in the past and just realize that they're really good. I mentioned this in the last podcast, Kyle. I said what we forgot is the Jaguars have had either the first, second, or third overall pick the past, 5 years.
It's really nuts.
So when we played...
They spent a lot of money.
Yeah, dude, they have good players. They have good players everywhere, and you forget that because... You know, Urban Meyer was down there finger banging people all last year.
One of the worst. I don't know how much college football you get into, but he went back to the big noon kickoff show. Okay. Which is Fox's and FS1's kind of game day. And he's just terrible. Like I can't stand the guy. I can't.
I haven't seen him yet, but I also hate RG3 reminds me of that because I hate watching RG3 on TV. I just hate him.
I like him. I think he's pretty good. He leans into his personality.
I hate him so much. I haven't
watched him much this year, but last year he always has one or two kind of ridiculous, funny things that he says that make no sense, but his Twitter, I would stay away from his Twitter if you don't.
Yeah, stay away from. I think that's what it is. I think I watch his TikTok show up on my page, and I hate him.
He's good as an announcer, actually watching some games. But I read some of his tweets, and they don't make much sense from a guy like you said. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. All right. Also, good to mention, Trevor Lawrence has Philly next week, and they're going to be down a whole bunch, so that could be a good look for him. Is
that your last waiver wire?
No, I have 2 more. Sorry. So the 5th I have is the Eagles defense.
So I picked them up.
Did you pick them up?
League. No, not in our league. I grabbed them in another one.
Oh, okay.
I had the Dolphins, and the week before they got torched by Lamar.
Right.
And ended up, I think, -7 in our league, and I had them in another. And I picked up the Eagles defense, and they had 18. They have 9 sacks on your boy. And
dude, so they are currently the 4th best defense in the league statistically. Granted, they did play Washington, which that might have been the worst offensive performance I've seen ever. But on the eyeball test alone, they look good. And
Darius Slay is one of the best. Like you said, the Justin Jefferson treatment.
Yeah, and also time of possession. Time of possession there. I think they're third best in the league for time of possession. So the defense isn't on the field that much, which helps a lot. You know what I mean? And so they're out there if you need a defense. I know people like to play the matchup games, but they look like they're a solid pickup. And the last pickup I have for the week is a kicker. It's Younghoe Koo. Okay.
That was gonna be the one
okay.
I was gonna mention. You didn't, because he's leading the NFL. He's the highest.
Take it away. Take it away, Kyle. I want you to throw it out there.
How did you say his first? Is it Younghoe? I thought it was Younghoe Koo.
So technically, I used to live with Vietnamese people. Technically, you pronounce it Younghoe. However, it looks like Younghoe.
I'm very white, so I'm gonna call him Younghoe for a while. Yeah, I was just trying to think of, or just look at like kind of the best through 3 weeks, the best at each position, and he's number one. Number one as a kicker, and he's out there.
How racist are we that we leave the only Asian player in the NFL on the waiver wires?
I would say I would avoid the Falcons at all costs, but they're a frisky team. They're fun,
and they're not going to score a lot. And Younghoe Koo's going to hit a lot of field goals. Apparently,
they've been in the mid-20s. I think every game this year. They've been pretty. They're coming back a lot. They had that great comeback against the Rams. Won it down 28-3, which would have been fun. Here's
a great kicker stat for you. Younghoe Koo leads the league in attempted 50-yard field goals. He's already missed 3 of them, so he could have had more points. Clearly, they're letting him out there. They know they're not going to get. They're not one of those teams that's going to go for it on 4th down. You know, they're going to let him out.
I don't know why you wouldn't if you're the Falcons. Like, you have no expectations. Just, I don't get it.
Falcons are interesting. This is the last thing I'll say about the Falcons. So I bet a lot now that I moved to Las Vegas. I do a lot of sports betting, and one of my buddies was putting in like a 10-team parlay, and he just threw in there. He made it seem like it was obvious. He's like, obviously you take the Seahawks, blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, you don't, dude. I was like, the Falcons are a trap game. They're going to cover. They might not win, but they're going to cover.
So I do a couple different just like straight pick'ems. You pick every game, whoever gets the most wins, and my dad's in one. And last year, I think he got the Falcons wrong every single week. So like he would pick them to win, they would lose. He'd be like, all right, he'll pick them to lose, and they win. And then literally every week, and just hearing his reaction to seeing the scores, I was just like, God damn Falcons every single time.
Yeah, they're an interesting team. They're not that good, but they're not that bad either. Like, they're right in the middle.
Stay away.
Yeah.
I'm not a gambler. Obviously, we're in Rhode Island. Maybe in a couple of years we'll catch up and have some online gambling. But yeah, that's a team that I wouldn't touch.
So there's two teams I don't bet with. I never bet with the Cowboys for or against the Cowboys because they're just a weird team, or the Falcons. They're my 2 teams that I'm staying away from.
The Broncos might be another one to stay away from.
Oh my God. We will talk about the Broncos. I hate the Broncos so much, dude. But we'll get into that later because we are going to talk about top 5s, and I don't want to ruin it. The next segment we're going to get into is top 5s. And Kyle brought this up to me. I thought it was a great idea. So we're going to get into a couple different top 5 lists. I only have 2 top 5 lists. I'm sure Kyle has a few more he wants to talk about. But the first one I want to get into is your top 5 surprises for the years, talking about players. So my number 5 is Curtis Samuel. He has been a top 10 wide receiver through week 3. Obviously, I watch a lot of Washington games, so I get to see him a lot. But on the eye test alone, he looks like he's the Deebo Samuel for Washington.
And he was hurt last year, and I think that's why a lot of people forgot about him.
Yeah, for sure.
He was so good in Carolina that he's a player. I don't know who has him. I have him in one of my leagues. I can't remember which one.
He was a big money signing. A lot of people didn't even draft him. He was on the waiver wire the first week, which was weird.
He was. So yeah, I got him. I think I got him in the league with my college friends, and yeah, he's been in my wide receiver rotation.
So he has he has the most targets for any Washington wide receiver so far to date, and he also has the third most rushes, which isn't that impressive, but just to throw out there, like, he's being utilized in a couple different ways.
Is that just for the team, you mean, right?
Yeah, just for the team.
Yeah.
Which is still pretty good considering they have like 5 running backs and like, you know.
Yep.
So I have him at 5th. I don't think he's lighting the league on fire or anything, but in terms of surprises, I think that's a big one.
I did not have him, but that is a good one.
Who was your number 5?
So I didn't really do it in order, but
okay,
I would say
or just throw me a name.
I guess they're kind of in order. I would say Cordell Patterson.
I hate Cordell Patterson. He's why I lost this week.
I had him on my team last year, and I had the opportunity to keep him, and I was just like, there's no way they'll do it again.
Right.
There's just no way. Like, they have a running back. There's whatever. Would he have like 147 yards last week? He's got 3 touchdowns this year.
Dude, here's the thing, though. They don't have a running back. Like, behind him is not much.
Well, they drafted the kid. I forget where he's from. But
Algier. He was on my bench. I just dropped him recently.
Yeah, they were pretty high on him. Yeah. So I'm just upset because I have 0 touchdowns from running back so far through 3 weeks. The only one is Damian Pierce, who was on my bench,
right?
His first touchdown.
Yeah, we'll talk about him.
I have 0 touchdowns from running backs, and he'd be my one of my best players right now if I had kept him. So he was the first one I had up, or not the first one, but
yeah, I remember looking at the matchup and seeing Zach starting him, and I was like, what an idiot! And then sure enough, he beat me. So
and they don't really throw him that much. I thought that he was gonna get there. He's strictly playing running back with wearing 84, which is annoying.
And he's still good.
Yeah, he's been solid everywhere he's gone, man. He was where was he? Tennessee, I think, in college. Tom will punch me if I'm wrong about that. I forget exactly where he played, but yeah, he was a first-round draft pick to be a kick returner, and he's been on a few teams. He's been productive everywhere, and the Falcons are feeding him.
Yeah, they are. Okay, so my number 4 was James Robinson.
I have him too. Yeah,
he has been under the radar very good this year.
Well, it's not. I mean, Saquon's playing right now, and it could change, but now he's second in running back points.
Yeah, he's RB2, only behind Nick Chubb. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I know that like everybody was kind of high on ETN and just maybe forgot about him, but yeah, like you said, he's been under the radar and he's very good.
Yeah, I have
a very talented Jags team. But yeah, he's on mine. He was my number 1. So if they're going in the order of I wrote them down, I didn't go back and rank them, but he was the first one I wrote down.
So I have, I also have as a note, I think this changes by the end of the year. I do think ETN eats into that target share.
Oh, for sure.
By the end of the year, and I don't think he'll end up finishing RB2. But I think up until today, like I don't think anyone thought his Achilles was going to be this healed by now.
Yeah, and the fact that he's playing again, I mean, I guess it's changed a lot of like how fast you can come back from certain things, but that used to be a 12-month minimum before you can even start like rehabbing kind of thing. And the fact that he's playing this well this fast is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I should have him higher up on this list considering if we're talking about surprises, because I think he was very surprising. But I wanted to put him on there because he's been doing really well this year. And for my third, or do you want to give someone as your fourth right now?
No, keep going. Yeah,
okay.
Keep going. I'll give you ones that if you leave any off. But
okay.
Yeah, we both had James Robinson.
So as my third, I have Amon-Ra St. Brown. And a few takeaways I have from him. So he's wide receiver 4 on the year. He looks like he's elite, as in like, I think by the end of the year, he's also going to be a top 5 wide receiver. He just looks like he's very good. Jared Goff is still not that bad of a quarterback. Granted, he's not the best, but he did take a team to the Super Bowl. Yep. And he was breaking records. Excuse me.
So I didn't have him. I wasn't surprised. I think I had him last year. Again, I don't know. I'm in too many leagues, but I knew he was good. He's a beast. And then I saw a stat that his brother, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name.
Equinemius St. Brown.
Equinemius. All right. So him and his brother are the only 2 players in the league this year that have a rush and a reception for 30 plus yards. So they both have that.
That's a great stat. The Browns are I'm sorry, not the Browns. The Bears suck. But but Amon-Ra St. Brown, yeah, you might be right about that. I knew he was good, but I didn't think he was going to be like top 5 in the league.
I didn't know he'd be top 5 good with Jared Goff, but
right.
I guess that says more about Goff. And then I don't know if he's going to be back this year, but Jamison Williams, the receiver from Alabama that they took in the first round, is coming off of an ACL.
I forgot about him. He's on the Lions?
Yeah.
Oh,
if he can come, but they had a couple top picks. I don't know when he'll be back, but probably by the end of the year, and they could be fighting for a
dude.
I mean, they could be.
I said it earlier, but
they could be fighting to win the division.
The Lions are good. The Lions are a good team. Like they played us, and they looked solid. Even their defense is good too.
They played the Eagles really tough, who I think is one of the better teams in the NFC, and they came back on them. Dan Campbell's a lunatic, and he's a guy like I would love to play for that kind of. Not now because I think I'd die. But yeah, he's a savage, and seems like a fun guy to play for.
Yeah,
he's got that team moving.
I'm sad I didn't get to draft Amon-Ra. He's like one of my biggest targets, and I didn't get him. I was sad.
Just for the name.
Yeah, just for the name, but also I knew he was going to be good, and I didn't think anyone else thought he was good, so I thought he would slip, and he didn't. You didn't pay a lot of draft capital for him, so if you have him on your team, that team's probably doing well. So second,
since I didn't have him, I'll throw another one on there.
Please do.
If you have Christian Kirk.
I don't have Christian Kirk, but I mentioned him in every podcast.
So I have him in our league. I think this is the first game I started him because I was just like, yeah, whatever. Sixth receiver overall right now, and definitely Trevor Lawrence's favorite target. And like I said, an offense that isn't.
Yeah, dude, follow the money.
Follow the money. They're averaging 25 points a game. Lawrence looks like he's supposed to look. They're moving the ball on everybody so far. They kicked the piss out of the Chargers.
Yeah.
So they're
like I said, follow the money. He had such a huge contract, and everyone was all questioning it, and it looked weird. But it's obvious that they saw something in him, and they're going to utilize him like a lot. Like he's clearly their wide receiver one, and the Jags look good.
If you're the Jags, you're one of those teams. You're going to pay a tax on a guy,
right? So yeah, that's fair.
He got paid 20% more than he would have by a real team, and now I think they're very legitimate contenders to win the South.
Yeah,
because that division's not great. I think the Titans are okay, but yeah, Christian Kirk was one that I had on there too.
I love it. 2 Jaguars already in the top 5. That's great.
Yep.
So my number 2 I had is Jalen Hurts, who is your quarterback.
Okay. Yep, he's also on my list.
He's QB3 on the season, and granted, he had a lot of hype going into the year. He was like trendy, sexy pick where it's like he might be good, he might not be good, but he has turned out to be elite. So
I told you that I had one of the 5 things were stats. So we might eat into them as we talk about.
Yeah, please do.
I have another one. So he's the first player since 1950 to have 900 passing yards and 100 rushing yards through 3 games.
Damn. So
he has 914 passing yards and like 167 rushing through 3 games.
So that's a great stat, because in my notes here so being a Washington fan, I'm sorry I always go back to Washington, but I've only had 1 year of being a Washington fan where I was excited. And that was the year when RG3 was our quarterback as a rookie. And Jalen Hurts looks like he's recreating that year. Granted, he's better at throwing the ball than RG3 was, but I can tell you a magical season's about to happen early, and it looks like this is the Eagles' year.
They got weapons, man. I don't know if you saw that catch. I mean, I'm sure you did if you're watching that game.
Yeah,
that catch
yes, I did.
Smith made, absurd. And I don't know, I like a sucker, I bought Madden this year.
So did I.
And did get Devontae Smith on whatever team you do. He catches everything. So
he's one of those players that ends up being 99s in a few years.
Yeah, it's insane.
Well, I mean, Heisman winner, right? Are we surprised that he's that good?
A little bit. No, not really. I mean, he was a 6th overall pick. I guess he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. But I have Dallas Goedert as my tight end, and then AJ Brown is a top tier wide receiver.
He's a beast.
And then they got 3? They got 3 running backs that are all good. So I'd be frustrated if I was a Miles Sanders owner, because Gainwell gets the ball a lot, Boston Scott, and then Hurts runs. But yeah, they got a lot of weapons.
As a football team, though, they look like they're ready for a run, dude. And their defense is nasty too.
Yep. Yeah, they're and in a division. It's 3-0 Cowboys. We got 1:30 left in the first quarter over here. So like you said,
3-0, huh?
Yep. They had the Giants might have 1st and goal.
Okay. We'll see if Saquon gets a look. So as my number 1.
Oh, never mind. It's on the 30.
Oh, okay. As my number 1 top 5 surprises, or my number 1 surprise, I guess you can say, is Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
And granted, it's not a huge surprise. He's won an MVP before.
I think how good the first 3 games have been. And so again, we're going to eat into my stats I found interesting. So Lamar just had I thought the Patriots, watching that game, played him pretty well.
Uh-huh.
They gave him the ball back a few times where they really shouldn't have. And Mark Andrews made some kind of insane catches, but there's just like 5 or 6 plays a game where you're like, dude, Kyler Murray does it where you're like, there's nothing I can do.
No one else can guard that, right?
So Josh Uche is one of the Pats edge rushers, and he made him look like if I was trying to tackle a professional athlete, that's what he made him look like. And he just moves so quick, and that was his 7th game with 200 yards passing and 100 yards rushing.
That's insane.
So that's his 7th, and no one has had more than 3 since 1950.
So I mentioned this on the last podcast, Kyle, but if your quarterback throws for 300 yards, you're pumped, right? If your running back runs for 100 yards, you're pumped. Lamar Jackson has done that twice already.
Yep. And he leads the league, and he's got 10 touchdown passes, and he's 4th in rushing yards.
That's insane. So he's the number 1 fantasy football player to date. He has 20 more points than the second player, who is Josh Allen. So he's heads above. So
Jalen Hurts is only 2 behind Allen. So there's a cluster there, and then a nice drop for until you get to Mahomes.
So overall, wrapping him up, basically just pay that man, dude.
And, I don't understand what they're doing. If they give him the Kirk Cousins treatment of franchise tag, I don't. He's only 25 years old. He's already won an MVP. He's got an absurd record.
Who else are you going to go after, right? Everything's such a fall off.
Everything you can dream of. Lamar fell into your lap.
Right.
And I didn't. Someone mentioned this on a show that I forgot that the Ravens had multiple first round picks that year. Did you know that they drafted Hayden Hurst before they drafted Lamar Jackson?
That's insane. Well, I mean, how many quarterbacks were taken before him? There was like 4 or 5, right? It was like Josh Rosen.
Yeah. Baker, that was Baker, Josh Allen, Rosen, and then I think Lamar was the last pick in the first round, right after Sony Michel.
That's funny.
And then the Pats took Sony Michel right before. And they obviously at that point probably wouldn't be looking for a quarterback, but hindsight's 2020. Yeah. They should have taken Nick Chubb. Also went after Sony Michel, and they went to the same school. So
that's funny. Okay, so that's my top 5 surprises. Did you have anyone on your list that I didn't say already?
I added Jalen Waddle.
Yeah,
because he's third among receivers right now. He's ahead of Tyreek Hill. I haven't looked at like the targets, but he's just got. I think people pay a little more attention to Tyreek because of his, and well deserved.
Yeah,
but Waddle is
Jalen Waddle is so fast.
Yeah, which is what impressed me the most about the Pats defense. In that game, and it was a couple weeks ago, but that was really the only play they gave up was like a 4th and 17 where somebody fell asleep, and you cannot take a play off against the Dolphins, man. They're too fast.
It's insane they have both those wide receivers. Like Tua is going to be so good this year just because he has those two people.
Especially early in the year when it's hot in Florida. I mean, they said the Ravens, one of those crazy advanced stats said the Ravens secondary ran more than like any unit in the last 25 years.
Dude, there was people dropping like flies in that game.
They're gassed. Yeah. Same thing with the Bills.
Right.
Stephon Diggs was gassed. So I think that's part of the reason Miami's 3-0, but like I said, they got a coach that everybody seems to be having a lot of fun with, and an offense that they're going to be like the Rams of the AFC, which is a Patriots fan. Yeah. Scares the shit out of me because there's just going to be guys that are going to be like, I want to go there. I want to play for him. I want to play with them. So
they could be scary. I don't think Tua is that good, but we'll see.
You don't if you have elite receivers like that, you can have a average or an above average quarterback and do well.
So the next top 5 I have, Kyle, is the top 5 disappointments, or the POSs as we say.
Yeah.
And I have such a long list. I have 10 people on this list, by the way.
I narrowed mine down.
Okay. So
I'll just do my 5.
Yeah, please.
Four of them kind of work together. So these are 4 first ballot Hall of Famers, and right now they all have less points than Mitch Trubisky. 3 of them are like, so for different reasons, 3 of them are some of the most unlikable people in the league, I think.
Okay.
One of them is Matt Stafford, who I don't think that about. I don't think he's a little injured. They've been a little stagnant. I think they'll get it back on track. Cooper Kupp's a beast. They don't really have much else, but he has less points than Mitch Trubisky right now.
That's pretty sad.
Yep. The next one, Aaron Rodgers. Again, I'm unlikable for many reasons. I think he's hilarious, but he's definitely a little bit of a prick.
Yeah.
Just underwhelming early in the season, but still. Mitch
Trubisky I hear you.
Has more points than him. Tom Brady is going to be is the next one.
These are all great call-outs, by the way.
Again, receiver injuries earlier in the year. He looks like is this what it was like? Because like, as a Pats fan, like we had him for so long and definitely like put up with his bullshit. But is this what it's like? Because I used to like the Bucs a lot. Mike Allstott's still one of my favorite players. But good Lord, like him throwing tantrums and
yes, I'm so glad you brought this up, Kyle.
Spike in the.
So Tom Brady, so it's a combination of reasons why I dislike Tom Brady. Number one was he played for the Patriots, and living in New England and not being a New England fan and having to watch them every week is played into it. But then on top of that, it was like. He's a great quarterback, right? Obviously he's the best quarterback of all time, and he keeps winning Super Bowls. So it's almost like he gets away with certain things. It's like, if you take away his Super Bowls, like he is a jabroni at heart, right? Like everything he does is just so whiny and it's so like entitled, and it's like, you can't say anything cause he's Tom Brady. And now he's finally old enough where we can be like, oh, you stink, dude. You know what I mean?
And he's definitely like gets his hair feathered. The Giants he did not have first and goal, by the way. It was in the midfield. I don't know what I was looking at. But he definitely, I think he left to have plastic surgery. Cause like his face is just so,
it looks weird.
And I don't know what's going on with his marriage. Like I'm sure that affects him a little bit, but like, it's tough. But then, so he's still not, I got one more. And
yeah, please.
Sure you said we're going to talk about him, who the cringiest human being on the planet. Maybe
don't
maybe
get me started, dude.
It's Russell Wilson, man. I'm so glad I'm not a Dolphins fan. I have a close friend who's a Dolphins fan. He was so pumped about Russell Wilson.
Oh, you mean Broncos, right?
What did I say?
You said Dolphins. You mean Broncos, though, right?
Oh yeah. Sorry,
I hate the Broncos.
Russell.
I drank the Kool-Aid. I bought into the early season hype. I thought he was going to be the next coming of Lamar Jackson, right? And he stinks, dude. That whole team stinks.
And like stinking is one thing, but his just personality is
it's worst.
So fake. I don't know. I just can't. I love some of the stuff, and I'm sure we'll hear more when he's done playing. I think. Yeah. From like Rich, I want to hear. I would love. That's one guy I would like to have a couple drinks with and just say spill is Richard Sherman, because I feel like he would not hold back at all.
No, not at all.
I want to hear everything.
That's so funny you mentioned those people, Kyle, because I don't have any of those people on my disappointment list. But granted, those are all huge disappointments because they were drafted to be like what they've always been, especially Russell Wilson.
I like one time I was kind of going position by position and just scrolling and waiting for a name to pop out. And then I got to Mitch Trubisky, and those guys were all behind him. And there's a couple others that for quarterbacks that could be
dude. And they want Mitch Trubisky out. So imagine these other people like
they're chanting for Pickett, and Trubisky's got more points, and the Steelers are terrible.
So I agree with all those picks. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No problem. He's not a player, and Jim Kern's going to be upset about this one. But Josh McDaniels is he took a team that went to the playoffs. I don't know if you remember the playoff game with the Raiders and the Bengals last year. They were like,
yeah, I do. They got blown out, right?
They were the Raiders almost won. They had a chance to. I don't know if it would have tied or.
I do remember that game. Yeah.
At the end of the game, so they took that. He took that team that was coached by a special teams coordinator, a lifetime special teams coach that went to the playoffs. They added 2 Hall of Famers and Chandler Jones and one of the best receivers in the league, and they suck. Josh McDaniels is the worst coach in the NFL. I know we're going to talk about coaches in a little bit, but
Kyle, I live in Las Vegas. All my coworkers are huge Raiders fans, and it is so funny. My dad's a huge Raiders fan. It's so funny because I think I come into work and I think like, oh man, Washington sucks. Everyone's going to make fun of Washington, and they're like, dude, and like every week I'm reminded that there's worse teams than us. You know what I mean? Like, because they have hope. Like they have actual hope that they're good.
And they haven't played in that division yet. And then I guess that division's been a little underwhelming. The Chargers are underwhelming, and the Broncos aren't good. And the Colts just beat the Colts beat them. I don't know if you had them in any of your parlays for gambling, but I know. Yeah,
the Colts and the Bills ruined. The Colts and Bills ruined any chance I had of making money this week. Yeah, so let me give you my top 5 disappointments. And I have 10 people here, but really I have like groups of people, so I'm not going to run through all of them. But first I have is first round running backs. Any running back that was drafted in the first round is not doing what you thought they were going to do. I don't think there's a single player, even DeAndre Swift, isn't doing what you thought he was going to do.
Are you including keepers in that?
No, so I'm including like who we drafted first.
Okay. I have Fournette was my first round. Okay, he apologized to me. I think it was me personally, but maybe all of his fantasy owners for not having a touchdown yet. And
well, Kyle,
Even game week 1,
even including keepers, people like Derrick Henry and people like Alvin Kamara and people like Eckler, like there's a lot of
Taylor.
Just all top tier running backs have stunk, dude. We're gonna go over weekly MVPs later, and it's hilarious who the best running backs have been through the first 3 weeks, and it's none of the top 10 people. So that was my first group. The second group of people I have is first round wide receivers, excluding Cooper Kupp and Stephon Diggs. There was like a group of sexy wide receivers there, like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, pretty much all the LSU guys, right? Which were supposed to be like the best in the world. And granted, they might be. But through 3 weeks, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase have been getting absolutely triple teamed and quadruple teamed.
Jefferson had a huge game the first week.
He did.
Which makes the next 2 weeks look worse.
He had 2 points this week.
Yeah. Yep.
And then I have DJ Moore. / the whole Panthers team, because Baker Mayfield might be the worst Panthers quarterback ever. But like,
I'm just thinking recently, like Sam Darnold was pretty bad when he played last year.
But Baker's not that good.
PJ Walker came in. Remember him from the XFL?
I do.
He lit it up a little last year.
I do.
Yeah, Baker sucks. Like Baker's just not. He's not the guy.
And then fourth, I have Kyle Pitts.
I had him on my list until this week. He had like 88 yards.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's been a disappointment for sure.
Yeah, for what you thought he was going to be, even in Atlanta, you thought he was going to be something, but
he's a decoy for some receiver you've never heard of. And then Drake London's actually been pretty good.
Right. And then fifth, I have, which I want to talk to you about, is I just have Kyle's team. Because I was looking at everyone who was disappointing, and you have like 4 or 5 people on your team that are just like.
Let me pull that roster back up. Yeah, it's so that was I don't know when, but one of these podcasts we have to do, like maybe it's in a couple of years when the dust has settled on how I made the playoffs last year.
I don't know who's on your team, but let me pull up your team real quick. Hold on.
So yeah, I mean, I do have Jalen Hurts, I do have a lot of disappointing players now that you like.
You do. So I was trying to make a list of people. So let me just run through some of the people I thought were disappointing. Leonard Fournette isn't doing what you thought he's going to do. CeeDee Lamb might be one of the most disappointing, like top tier wide receivers out there. Terry McLaurin, he had a decent week this week, but he is like the third option in Washington.
Yeah, I wish I knew that. I took him pretty early. Even I mean, he's so far 12, 10, and 13.
Okay, not the worst.
Not what you're looking for as the first receiver I drafted, not including CeeDee Lamb, who I kept. He's
not even the best receiver on his team. So next I have is Dameon Pierce, who's like the hyped up player from the year, who I don't even think he's running back one. He had a good week this week. But
so yeah, this week I think he's slowly starting to take carries away from Rex Burkhead.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's increased he's increased every week. He went 11, then 15, and then 20, and he'll be okay.
And then the last player I have is Josh Jacobs, who's just collectively a Las Vegas player. So
the best part is 2 of the people you named were my keepers. Yeah, Jacobs. I was in a bind of who I had to keep, and yeah, Jacobs. I mean, he had a decent week last week, but yeah, I don't want my wagon hitched to anybody on the Raiders. But
yeah. Well, I mean, you could save your season for sure. I just said disappointing in the sense that like so far these guys have not been what you drafted them to be. You know what I mean? Yep. I do think Leonard Fournette's going to end up being good, but for right now, the reason he's not good is they have no wide receiver, so they're stacking the box against Brady.
Yeah, the Bucs looked like this week. They looked like the Patriots, Tom Brady's last year.
Yeah, they are injury ridden. That's what it was, and no wide receivers.
Where like Edelman with one leg was the best receiver that they had. Like that's everybody said like, oh, Tom Brady's washed. Like nobody in the world could win with those guys. They still made the playoffs that year. That was crazy. Yeah,
they do arguably have the best defense in the league, though.
I left them out of like my kind of three week winners. The Bucs D is pretty fantastic, and they're going to carry them. They're going to carry them for a little bit.
So Kyle, what other? Those are the only 2 top 5 lists I had. Did you have any other stats you want to throw out there?
So we kind of ran through the stats that I had, except for one with the Dolphins.
Okay.
So it's happened 3 times since 1940 that a team has won while running under 40 plays. I don't know if you saw like the splits of the Bills Dolphins game. The time of possession, the Bills had the ball for like over 40 minutes.
Kyle, I had that later. I'll say that stat after you finish this one.
They ran 90 plays and lost. And under 40, it's happened 3 times since 1940, which is
that's insane. So
pretty crazy stat.
My stat that I have later is that the Bills have like drastically the most time of possession out of any team. So if you're facing them in fantasy and you have like an offensive player on the other team, it's kind of hard to start them because like they're never on the field.
It is. It's weird that you'd figure an offense that explosive would score a little faster, but they didn't. I mean, they didn't score much.
Kyle, they've only punted once so far this season. Isn't that crazy?
I didn't watch that. I didn't really watch that game. How did they not score more?
They just
in the Dolphins game.
I don't know. They have 1 punt on the season. I mean, granted, I think that the Broncos punted 10 times last night.
I think it's probably good for them too that like you can avoid talking about their punting situation after what happened with the guy they drafted. So
that's true.
They're probably pretty pumped about that.
That's true.
Yeah, I didn't have any other top 5s. I know that we wanted to talk about little coaches getting fired.
Yeah, please do.
And then I also had a way too early prediction for 2024 that I wanted to get because it involves your team heavily.
Okay, throw it out there. What you got?
You want to which one do you want to start with? That's up to you.
Let's do the early 2024 predictions you have.
All right. I think the Commanders in 2024 go from worst to first in the NFC East.
Well,
so
There's never been an NFC East division winner who's won twice, or at least in like the past 20 years. It's always been someone different. So we're not winning it this year.
we started talking about the coach, or I started thinking about like coaches getting fired.
Uh-huh.
I don't think they'll fire Rivera during the year.
He'll be out of here by next year though.
But I don't think he comes back. And then if they cut Wentz, that's like they don't lose anything on the cap. They save like $27 million because there's no way they bring him back for
right.
$26 million.
Right.
So you got some good cap. I think you should. I would bench him because I don't know if you remember the trade that they made. If he plays 70% of the offensive snaps, it's a second round pick. If he plays less than 70, it's a third round pick. So I think they should get him to 68% and then
let Sam Howell fly out there.
Let Sam Howell throw the ball around.
Yes, sir.
So you got good cap space. Hopefully you get that pick back.
But
then we were talking about like even McLaurin's been underwhelming, but Curtis Samuel's been awesome. McLaurin's still really good. Dawson's really good.
Yeah.
Gibson, McKissick, Robinson. So you got three.
Logan Thomas
three
is
good
okay.
Backs. Yeah, but then a great D line. No, Chase Young's always hurt, but they got a really good D line, couple good corners.
We just got to fix our linebacking core and get a good safety in there. We'll be okay on defense.
And get an offensive coach. I think there's going to be some guys available.
I want Byron Leftwich.
I was going to say Leftwich, Bieniemy has to get a head job, but I think the Chargers end up getting rid of their coach.
You think so?
Yeah, man, he's a dumbass. Like I don't know. There's too much talent on that team. Like they don't look good at all in any of their games. They haven't looked good. I think
they're too good on paper to be losing games like this. I agree.
And Anthony Lynn was only there for a couple of years, and they axed him. I don't see them keeping this dude around very long. So there's going to be some talented teams with openings. I think Leftwich, Bieniemy, Kellen Moore probably gets nabbed.
I'm gonna disagree with you that Washington goes from worst to first. I do think we can improve, but I don't think in any realistic world we go from worst to first without signing a top tier quarterback, and none of those are going to be free.
That's fair,
but you never know.
Garoppolo will be available though.
Oh, he's not top tier.
He's a winner when he's healthy and with a good team around him, and I think they have that. But yeah, like I said, that's got to solve that. We'll see. I think crazy things happen.
Yeah,
obviously with all like the trades, and somebody will get pissed off halfway through the season and want out.
That's true. I want Lamar to Washington.
I was gonna say, figure out a way to get Lamar.
Do it. That would be so sick.
You trade every first round pick from now until. But the problem is now that Sarver is out with the Phoenix Suns, you back to having the worst owner in sports. So that's
we've
a tough
always
look.
had the worst owner. I don't know if no one follows this.
Sarver took some of the attention for a little while.
Yeah.
But now that he's out. So you were joking that I know a guy who knows a guy who knows your favorite player in the NFL.
Right.
One of the guys that I worked with when I lived in Texas, he worked for the Phoenix Suns. He was in like an entry-level ticket sales position. I don't know if you read through the ESPN article, he was quoted in it because during the ALS bucket challenge that everyone was doing, Robert Sarver, the owner of the Suns, pantsed him in front of like 90 people. He pulled his pants down. And he was like interviewed, and he's been doing podcasts, like talking about his trauma.
Just a real class act, huh?
Lunatic. And then he said that the head of HR walked right up to him and said, "Please don't sue us." And he was like 24, so he didn't think anything of it. And then a few years later, he's like, "Damn, I probably could have got some money out of it."
Probably should have done it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the future for the Commanders is there. They have.
We've got some young talent. We've got some shit to work with.
And got some maneuverability. You got to get. I love Ron Rivera, but I don't think.
Me too, but he's got to get out of here.
The problem the Patriots are going to have is having that kind of old school defensive coach. It's not the way. I don't think it's the way you win football games anymore.
Especially if your defense still stinks. Like, what are we even doing? You know what I mean?
That's true. At least the Pats they have a good defense. You can't be bad at both.
Right, dude. Like, our defense got torched yesterday. Okay.
Yeah, Chase Young being out's tough.
Yeah, he'll be solid.
The coaches thing. So I looked up the odds as of last week. So it's a little different because I think a couple of these guys won.
Okay.
But Matt Rule was the favorite to be the first coach fired. So there's always a couple that get it in the middle of the season, and then
that's the Panthers, right?
Yep, 5 or 6 more that are going to get it after the season, Black Monday or whatever they call it.
I'm trying to think of who would probably be fired. Maybe the Bears. The Bears coach?
Rule. He's in his first year. They suck. I think they know that their roster sucks.
Yeah.
But the next one, so Matt Rule is 2-1 to be the first coach fired. The next one is Nathaniel Hackett. We're talking about the Broncos, and he's been there for 3 games.
Get him out of there, dude.
He's number 2. And I hate that his name's Nathaniel. I think Nat, call him Nat Hack.
Dude,
he sucks.
So I watch a lot of football, and it's hard to watch a game and be like, the coach stinks. Like, there's not a lot of games where I watch and I'm like, damn, coaching stinks. But I've watched the Broncos, and their coaching stinks.
It's dude, they hired a guy. I took him out of retirement to like help with clock management. And he's only been a coordinator, and I think that's, I don't know. It's nuts that you can get to that point of coaching and be that good and just like not figure out how to.
Dude, I was watching the game yesterday, and every time it was third down, it'd be like 3rd and 7. They would just like throw a little 2-yard out and then punt the ball. And I'm like, what are they doing? Like,
yeah, it's the clock management stuff is crazy because I feel like you can get a 15-year-old who plays Madden a lot to like know when to take a timeout and like know when you should spike it and know how to handle the last minute of a half, and they're just terrible at it. Yeah, he's only been in there for 3 games, and he's 5-1 with the second best odds. Frank Reich is going to be 3rd at 7-1.
That's the Colts?
The Colts, yeah.
Ooh.
I think they gave him kind of after Philip. So since Luck left, they've basically been like, find your next quarterback, and they got Rivers, and that didn't work out, and then they got Wentz, and that he loved Wentz, and that was not ideal, and now Matt Ryan's just too damn old. And then
I hate that people said Matt Ryan was an upgrade. I hate that. I hate that people are like, Michael Pittman gets an upgrade at quarterback. Like, I don't know, man.
Wentz put up really good. I think if you took his name out and looked at the numbers, like Wentz had a pretty good season last year statistically. It's just like if you watch the games, you're like, dude, the only thing you can't do right now, a pick six, sick.
Yeah.
Like the only thing, he took a sack. He makes those.
Reminds me of Kirk Cousins.
On prime time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Prime time Cousins is still. I love that. So me and Jim, that was our game last week, and I lost by 1.5 points. So he was like, dude, Kirk's got a 4th pick in him. It's coming. And he hit somebody in the Eagles right in the hands.
He threw a punt. He threw a punt up in the air.
He really tried to get me to win, but he a little bit short. Cliff Kingsbury's next at 8-1. They just extended him, but I don't understand how he got that job at all. I think it's because he recruited Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech. That's like the reason that he got a head job at all, but that's insane. And then Vrabel is 10-1. I don't see him.
No way.
I'd be terrified. Imagine firing that dude to his face. He's the scariest. So that should have been another one. The next time I do this, we'll do like ranking if there was a cage fight of coaches who would win.
I like it.
So that
because he's
Vrabel
up there.
And Dan. Spoiler is Vrabel versus Dan Campbell is probably going to be
that's going to be the championship for sure. I do like the idea of Kingsbury.
Rivera was 14-1. And Mike McCarthy was 16-1. I think both of those guys are out.
I agree.
Next year, I don't see Jerry firing him mid-season.
Not with Dak hurt.
As it's like somebody who like just loves watching the Cowboys be average. I would love to see them bring him back again because he's another one.
He's pretty bad.
The playoff game last year when Dak ran a QB draw with like 8 seconds left. Time ran out. Like there's just like, dude, come on, what are you doing?
My favorite play from last year was like 4th and 11, and they did like a double reverse on the Washington, and they lost like 5 yards. That was great. But yeah, I agree with you. I think all those coaches might be gone by the end of the year. I don't know about Frank Reich. That's the only one I'm thinking. I'm like, I don't know if they fire him, but maybe they do.
No, I don't know about during the year. Irsay but he's a lunatic. I don't know, like the stuff that came out about Wentz after that last game, or after the Jaguars game last year, was like, he's done. They're like, what? Like, get rid of him. I'm like, okay, you're the boss, and I can see him doing that with Reich. There's not a lot of great coaches out there because they have a great roster too.
But definitely get the Broncos coach out of here. Get Cliff Kingsbury out of the NFL. I agree. Yep. Matt Rule, unlucky, bro. You have inherited Baker Mayfield. That just sucks.
Well, they traded for Baker,
but
they also traded. They traded for Sam Darnold too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. You got the best NFL player on the field, and you don't give him the ball. They
picked. J.C. Horn was pretty good. He's corner good. That they took, but I mean, there were some quarterbacks on the board after they could have traded up. I don't know. Yeah. It's tough, man. The quarterback first round picks are like it's a 50-50 toss up.
So next we're going to get into week 3 matchups. We're going to talk about everybody's matchup and see who the winner was, who's the loser, who's still on top, who's on bottom. Pause. First matchup we're going to get into is myself versus Zach. And Zach won 118-11. His top scorers were Cordarrelle Patterson with 21. We talked about him earlier. Derek Carr with 19 and Nick Chubb with 17. So solid top 3.
Are those the projected points?
No, those were his actual top 3 scores for the week.
Nick Chubb only had 17 last week?
He had 17 this week. This is me versus Zach this week, not last week. Last week he was RB1.
Okay, yeah, that's what
So my top scores were Mark Andrews with 24, Chris Olave with 19. He had a great week. And then I had A.J. Brown with 17. And my biggest takeaways from this game were my running backs killed me. They only had about 11 points to combined. Overall, Zach had a good win. I think no one was really a standout performer. I mean, Cordarrelle Patterson had a good week, but overall his whole team just had a good week. No real superstars there. Russell Wilson stinks. He's the reason why my team lost. How
do we get Zach to stop sending pictures of that sex swing to the group chat?
You know what?
Do we have? I checked.
I think the only way is to give him a new meme. And once you see this episode and you see the first picture that I posted at the beginning, I think he'll start using that moving forward.
Good, because it was Miles St. John a lot, and now it's just like a random.
I couldn't deal with the Miles St. John.
Like after this many pictures of the sex swing in a row, I'm like begging for a picture of Miles St. John.
Yeah, I mean, overall,
there's another one. I don't know if you've checked. I just checked the notifications because I have that chat muted, and there's another one in there. So.
Of course, there is. But you hate to lose to Zach. It was unfortunate. I thought I was going to win, but I didn't. So, congrats to him. He moves to 2-1, and I will be 1-2, I believe. So the next game we have is Matty Will versus Nugget, and Matty Will drugged Nugget in this game. It was an overall beatdown. He won by 50 points. Granted, Nugget still has one player to play at the time of recording this, but it looks like Matty Will's going to win handedly. So Matty Will's top 3 scores were Derrick Henry with 22, Marcus Mariota with 15, and Dalvin Cook with 13. So, again, not an exciting week for Matty Will either. I think this was just a case of Nuggets stinking. Nuggets' top 3 players were Ramondre Stevenson with 18, Debo with 8, and Jimmy G was his third best scorer with 8. So, shitty performance from Nugget. Nugget still has Tony Pollard to play. I think he's playing right now, but I don't expect Tony Pollard to light it up. A few takeaways from this. Nugget had Khalil Herbert on his bench, so maybe he makes a starting lineup next week.
Yeah, Montgomery, they said he's going to be week to week.
Yeah, Montgomery looks like he's going to be hurt, but Khalil Herbert looks very good, so maybe Nugget starts him. He doesn't have much to choose from. Also interesting, Nugget didn't start J.K. Dobbins. I don't think it would have helped him out, but maybe moving forward, that's his starting running backs.
Yeah, Dobbins looked he looked like he's healthy. So I know like the first year coming back after the ACL, people get a little.
Yeah, so at least Nugget will have 2 solid running backs he can start.
At least he's going to touch the ball out.
Right. The next matchup we have is Colton versus Nico. And Colton is projected to win this game. I think they still both have players to play. Colton has Zeke to play, and Nico has the Cowboys defense. But again, that game's probably not going to be a huge point-scoring game. Colton's top 3 scorers were Joe Burrow with 23. Devin Singletary had a great game. He had 19 points. And then Cincinnati defense had 19 for Colton. So good performance for him. Nico had not a very good week. His top 3 scorers were Kyler Murray with 13, Stephon Diggs with 10, and Hawkinson with 9. So he had a pretty bad week.
Currently Dallas has 11 points on defense, but it is only we have a burner here, 6-3.
Yeah,
in the second quarter.
There's a reason I don't have the game on right now. I wasn't expecting much.
You asked for updates, and I'm waiting to give you one. I just can't. I'm desperately waiting for something to happen to tell you about it. But
so on Nico's team, Nico had some people on the bench that could have helped him out. Jamal Williams was on his bench, so that could have helped. Maybe he starts him next week. I think he also has Alexander Madison on his bench, so two people that he could start next week that might help him. But overall, bad week for Nico. Solid weekend for Colton. I think Jerry Jeudy didn't help Colton out, but he didn't need him. Russell Wilson stinks. I'm going to keep hammering that.
Did you see Jerry Jeudy come back at Shannon Sharp on Twitter pretty hard?
I did, yeah.
And then immediately delete it when he remembered who Shannon Sharp is.
That's always funny, dude. Like, I forget how young some of these players are.
And it's, I don't know, I think First Take is, I think it's like the worst part, those kinds of shows about sports talk and television, just having like the stupidest hot takes. But
right.
Shannon Sharp's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he got to respect Shannon. Yeah.
And like a Broncos legend.
Right.
So I don't think you don't talk to your elders like that.
The next game we have is Mike versus Dan, and the two guys that don't text in the group chat bowl. They still have players to play, but Mike looks like he's going to win that matchup by about 10. Pardon me. Dan's top scorers were Josh Allen with 26, Tyler Lockett with 12, Jamar Chase with 9. Mike's top 3 scorers were Lamar Jackson with 39, Breece Hall with 12, and Brandon Ayuk with 11. So overall, a pretty boring week for both these guys. They were both being held up by their quarterbacks, but Lamar Jackson's just going to win you weeks sometimes. 39 points, it's hard to beat. So Mike ends up winning that game, and he is now the only undefeated player, I believe, in the league. So good week for him. Pretty boring game overall, but Lamar Jackson stole that. I tried to trade for Lamar Jackson with him this week, and it didn't help that he had 39 points. I don't think that's going to go through.
Yeah. I don't know if you have the capital to get him.
And the next game we have is Kyle versus T-Mac, and Kyle gets his first win, excuse me. He still had one player. You still have one player to play, but your top scores currently are Jalen Hurts with 27, Christian Kirk had 16, and Terry McLaurin had 13, compared to Tom's top three scores, which were James Robinson with 19, Patrick Mahomes with 16, and Drake London with 12. So Tom is officially the Raiders of our league, going 0-3.
I'm so glad to not be the Nugget too. I think
Nugget too, yeah.
Nuggets. Yeah, he knows he's been more quiet this year than last year. I think he knows his team's just not built.
Yeah, I think my prediction of Nugget winning the toilet bowl is looking smarter by the day.
And like I beat Tom this week, but I think I should still be a heavy favorite to at least participate in that one.
I did have Kyle. I did have you and Nugget in the toilet bowl. I'll admit.
Yep, and I deservedly so. Yeah, my team is not good.
But good week from you all around, though. This is a good week.
Jalen Hurts might be able to take me out of that.
He might claw you out of the toilet bowl. You might even make the playoffs, honestly. I don't think it's far-fetched to make the playoffs. You did it last year.
I think, but if Dameon Pierce kind of takes over and ends up being like a consistent 12+ point scorer every week, and I don't have to look at two running backs. I mean, I started Jeff Wilson this week, and he had 10. He had 12 and then a fumble. He had a couple long runs, but
it was a good week by you. Tom got hurt by Montgomery going out early. I think he only had 1 or 2 points from him. George Kittle didn't do much.
And Brandon Cooks was not.
Brandon Cooks also didn't help. So
not too much.
But Tom's team, like I said before, Tom's going to be held up by Mahomes and by Jonathan Taylor. Which, if they don't have good weeks, he's not going to win.
But he does. Like I said, we're talking about the Bucs defense. They're going to be solid all year.
Yeah.
The matchups.
Yeah.
I don't think the matchup matters. Kittle will get right. Drake London will be.
He's good.
A heavy target, and then Cooks he's good for a crazy game here and there. And then, like I said, we've talked about Robinson, and Tom's team. Tom is underperforming right now. But I think in the long run,
Tom's going to be fine. I don't think he'll be as worse off as Nugget. And the last game of the week we have is Brando versus Jim in the New Guys Bowl. And Jim still had one player left to play at this point in time, but it looks like Brando's going to take the win and end Jim's run at a perfect season. Jim's going to get his first loss. So Brando's top three scores were Russell Gage with 18, which is kind of random, but cool. Aaron Rodgers with 16, and then the Broncos defense with 16. Jim's top scorers were Christian McCaffrey with 12, T. Higgins with 11, and Michael Pittman Jr. with 11. So not a great week for him. I will say congratulations to Dan Wagon Fan for evading the week after playing me curse. Typically he'll throw up his worst week of the year after playing me. But yeah, Jim had a couple bad performances which let him down, but he'll be fine. I think his team's good too. So, all right. So now we're going to get into weekly MVPs, and this is a weird week for weekly MVPs. Granted, the Cowboys versus Giants game is not done yet, but I don't foresee any MVPs coming out of this game. I
just turned my head and watched CeeDee Lamb drop what would have been if not a touchdown, an enormous game. So thank God I don't need it, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we're getting anything special from that game. But starting off with our QB1 for the week, it is Lamar Jackson with 39.3 points. He had 218 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. He had 107 yards rushing and 1 touchdown rushing. This is his second week in a row being quarterback number 1. He is absolutely on fire, and they need to pay him.
I don't. You need to find a good inlay graphic of just show him the money, give him the money.
Oh, we'll put some money on his head.
Just the low ball, not giving him the guaranteed money. I think that's why all the owners, if they could kill one of the other owners, it would be Haslam from the Browns for giving Deshaun Watson $230 million guaranteed.
That's crazy.
Now, if you're Lamar, you're like, well, I'm not signing anything that's less than $215.
Yeah.
He's only 25, man. I love Lamar.
And he's won an MVP already. That's crazy.
And just give me all the Lamar stock.
So shout out to Lamar Jackson. He is on pace to have a crazy season. And this is where it gets weird. So our running back number 1 for the week is Khalil Herbert. He had 29.9 points. He had 20 attempts for 157 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 receptions for 12 yards on 2 targets. And I say it's
won, right?
And they won. I say it's weird because it's Khalil Herbert. However, he looked awesome. I mean, like, he looks like he's very good. I don't know if David Montgomery gets his job back, but Khalil Herbert, RB1, shout out to him. I don't know if he ever gets back to RB1 status, so I would celebrate while you can, Khalil.
We should tag him in this to let him know that he's the MVP for the running backs this week.
And it continues to get weirder with RB number 2, who is Jamal Williams, who had 23.7 points. He also had 20 attempts for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think he'll do fine moving forward. The Lions look good. And like I said, DeAndre Swift's out on IR, so I don't know if he makes it back to MVP.
But both guys that kind of came in mid-game during injuries. They weren't like
that's crazy.
Replacing starters that happened in the game.
Yeah, both
stepped up
and spoiler alert, both these guys are bench champions because neither of these guys were started.
You can't. Yeah, you'd never know.
Right. So wide receiver 1 on the week was Devontae Smith. He had 26.9 points, 8 receptions on 169 yards. He had 1 touchdown on 12 targets. He absolutely roasted the Commanders secondary. It was sad to see.
That'll happen.
But good game
Probably
for him,
a
honestly.
few more times.
He had a lot of good. He had a good game. He had a lot of like run after catch passes. He had one where he mossed a guy. Like, he just had a great game overall.
That catch was wild.
Yeah. So good week for him. Devontae Smith, wide receiver 1. Getting to wide receiver 2, and no one saw this coming, but it is Mac Hollins for the the Las Vegas Raiders. He had 25.8 points. I didn't put him on the waiver wire, people, because I don't think he sustains this when what's his name comes back. Who's the second wide receiver? Renfro. Yeah, when Renfro comes back, I don't think he does this, but
that was crazy.
But he did have 10 targets, right? He had 158 yards receiving and a touchdown on 8 receptions. So great week for him. Wide receiver 2. Shout out to Mac Hollins, So our flex position. Yeah, we'll tag them both. Our flex position MVP for the week is Derrick Henry, who had 22.8 points on 20 attempts for 85 yards and a touchdown. He also had 5 receptions for 58 yards and 7 targets. Sorry, go ahead.
Is that just who they put in the flex, or
no? So I put him as flex because he's not the top 2 running backs, not the top 2 wide receivers. The next best player.
I didn't know if somebody put them.
Oh, no.
I did see it, like a post or a meme that said you should put your best player at your flex just to scare the shit out of whoever you're playing. Yeah. Like, they got Derrick Henry at the flex. Who else do they have?
No, this is just kind of like if you could start the perfect lineup, this is how it'd be. No, so at tight end, I'm very excited to say this one. It's Mark Andrews for the second week straight. 24.9 points on 8 receptions, 13 targets for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's his second week in a row at tight end number 1, and the disrespect needs to be addressed because everyone was giving me shit for keeping Mark Andrews, and he is benefiting from Lamar Jackson.
After he had a really good year last year, I don't really understand the.
He was tight end number 1 last year. Call a spade a spade.
I didn't know he was 1. I knew he was up there, but he's a problem, man. The Patriots. I don't know if you saw the touchdown where he made a 15-year vet look like a child.
Right.
That ball, there's no way that ball gets completed. Mark Andrews is just a grown-ass man.
Yeah, I was trying to trade for Lamar Jackson because I wanted that stack on my team, and I don't think I'm ever going to be able to get him now. But shout out to Mark Andrews, my keeper. I'm going to keep saying it until he's not tight end number 1. The number 1 defense on the week was the Eagles defense with 18 points. They only allowed 6 points, 2 of those being a safety. They had 1 fumble recovery and 9 sacks.
That shouldn't count.
Well, I mean, technically it does,
I don't like it.
Wait, how does those points even work? 2 points for a safety. How do they get 4? That doesn't make any sense. I'm sure my stats are wrong. I apologize if my stats are wrong.
So their defense got a safety, right?
Washington got a safety. Oh, actually, you're right. That doesn't count towards them.
Yeah.
So it was 6 points, 2 field goals.
Did you see Jimmy Garoppolo step out of bounds?
I did.
Dan Orlovsky's the happiest man in America.
To save an interception too, by the way. Dan Orlovsky's is still worse because he kept running like he was going to scramble.
He tweeted like freedom or something like that after it. It was like, all right, like he got half of each foot out
right.
of bounds. Like you were 2 feet, probably 15 strides deep, like 3 feet into the out of bounds. Like, come on.
Yeah, it was. I want to shout out the Eagles defense because they had 9 sacks. They absolutely shat on the Commanders. I mean, it was ugly. And our boom kicker for the week is Greg Zuerlein Greg the Bigfoot Zerline with 18 points. He had 4 field goals made, 2 of those being 50-yard field goals. No one cares. We're getting kickers out of here next year, but I have to shout him out either way. Next segment we're going to talk about is bench champions. I don't have too many this week, but I'm going to go over some people that should have been started. Hopefully they're started moving forward. Number 1 being Khalil Herbert with 29.9 points. No one saw this coming, but I have to shout you out, Nugget, as he was on your bench and you're struggling for running backs. Hopefully next week you start him if David Montgomery doesn't go. Second for Nugget I have is Panthers defense. They had 16 points on his bench. And granted, defenses are hard to call, but, got to call you out. That was the second best.
I think having 2 defenses is a little odd strategy.
That is a little weird. Let me go real fast and see who he started.
Saints.
Nugget started the Saints defense, yeah, and they had 4 points.
Not a bad call against the Panthers.
Not a bad call. Obviously, he had the Panthers, so he had the same teams in the same matchup. So,
yep.
But got to call him out. I think they were the second best defense this week, so that stinks. Nico is being called out for Jamal Williams being on his bench. RB2 on the week, 23.7 points. Again, none of us saw this coming, but Jamal Williams was already eating into the goal line touches, so that could have been a solid start for him. Definitely a starter probably moving forward. Dan, kind of a weird one, had Zay Jones on his bench, who had 19.5 points. And the takeaway from this is the Jags are good. I don't know what's happening, but I guess you just got to start Jaguars now.
I'm in a few leagues, so I get confused on who I have. But I think, it's not this one. I have Marvin Jones Jr., who's another one who had not a great game, but, flex spot.
You just got to start looking into Jaguars now, and they're no longer nobodies, they're important.
Christian Kirk is my flex, but he might take McLaurin out of there. So I don't know who else I'm going to put
McLaurin's tricky, man. You never know what you're going to get with him. So next I have Kyle, and Kyle did not start Dameon Pierce. He was his bench champion of the week. 17 points. I have in parentheses here, he's a confusing running back because I don't really know what he does or if the Texans ever get in a game script where they're going to run the ball a whole bunch, but he's there.
They're going to be behind a lot.
Yeah, but he's there. 17 points. He had a good week.
But just as we were talking about it, McLaurin's probably going to sit McLaurin for a week. He had 100 yards. I don't know if I can sit him after 6.
I don't know if you can.
For 102.
I mean, we're playing the Cowboys next week, so he's going to get Trayvon Diggs.
I might just so it feels better. I might put McLaurin in my flex and Christian Kirk in my wideout too, even though it doesn't change anything.
He's getting demoted to flex just so he knows he might get benched next week. So after that, I have T-Mac with Devontae Smith, 26.9 points on his bench, wide receiver number 1. That sucks. I think he would have won this week had he started him, which kind of stinks.
If he put him over Cooks, I think he gets it done, especially because CeeDee Lamb has 3 points right now. It's almost halftime. So
yeah, that stinks. And then I have.
I do appreciate it.
Lastly, I have Jim, and I have his entire bench, and I'm going to go through some of his names here because rough week for him. So on his bench, he had Marquise Brown, Amari Cooper, Melvin Gordon, and Kirk Cousins. Which, I mean, that stinks, but you got to call him out. All those guys would have been better starts than the people he did start.
He's got a solid squad, though.
Yeah. So the next segment we're going to go over is manager awards for the week. So we're going to be giving some awards for best managers, worst managers. So the first award we're going to give to, Kyle, help me out here. Who had the most points for the week?
Low scoring week. So, Zach with 118.
Yeah, low scoring week. Zach actually takes the number 1 spot. He had 118.
And you had like the third highest score.
Third highest by only 1 point. Dan Wagon outscored me by 1. So unlucky week. I think I beat everyone else except for Dan Wagon this week. But unlucky. I mean, that happened to Zach last week, so maybe a little bit of payback towards me. So shout out to Zach. He gets our gold medal for the week for best manager. And on the flip side of that, granted the game's still going on, but I'm going to hand out the award right now to worst manager to Christopher Phillips with 64.3 points. He's currently in 12th in our league, and maybe Khalil Herbert takes him back to the promised land. We'll see, but Nugget gets the gold medal. Nugget gets the gold medal award for worst manager this week. So the next segment we're going to get into is the Week 4 outlook. We're going to be taking a look at matchups and seeing who we like moving forward. So Kyle, the first matchup I got for you is myself versus Mike. And this game comes in at so I'm coming in at a minus 2.2 favorite against Mike. The notable injuries in this is I have Keenan Allen out. He has Dalton Schultz out. I'm not sure if Dalton Schultz played today. I don't think he did. And then he has Jacoby Myers out, which I don't think you start Jacoby Myers even if he's healthy moving forward.
Although he could, that's a tough one with the Pats because you just got to figure out like who Hoyer is going to lean on.
Yeah.
And I think Myers has been there the longest of their receivers, so we'll see.
Yeah,
but I think he's going to chuck it to Devontae Parker because for some reason people think Devontae Parker can boss people, but he can't.
Yeah, so. Mike. So Mike gets back. Mike Evans next week. He'll be coming back from being suspended.
He's got a stacked team.
He does. He does.
Yeah, he's got a very good team.
I'm going to be facing Lamar Jackson next week. We're going to see he's playing Buffalo, and we just talked about how Buffalo will take away the time of possession. We'll see if that affects Lamar Jackson.
I don't know how many people are coming back. Again, I don't want to downplay a win in the NFL, but the Dolphins beat a Buffalo team that were out several starters on defense. Yeah. So I don't know how many of them will be back, but I don't know, man. I just think Lamar's a problem. He's in
I agree.
He's in kind of that "fuck you, pay me" mode this year, and
I agree
think that they're going to. He's going to be very good.
On my side of the ball, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just say that Dolphins game was pretty fluky. That crazy comeback. I think they controlled that game.
Dolphins are a paper good team in my opinion. On my side of the ball, I do have Russell Wilson on the bench. We will follow that storyline closely to see if I actually start him and want to root for him against Las Vegas, at Las Vegas, or if I want to stick with Jared Goff going to Seattle. We'll see. We'll see about that. But that's that game.
You don't want to. I mean, you did mention before there are some QBs on the waiver wire.
T-Law. There's a reason I put T-Law out there. He might make the starting squad as long as he's still there when I'm able to pick him up. We'll see. So the next game we have is the Barack Obama-ups versus the replacements. So we got Colton versus Matty Will. Matty Will is coming in as a heavy favorite here with an 8.8 spread. Colton is coming off of a win. I believe Matty Will is also coming off of a win. So these guys are coming in at 7th and 8th, respectively. Notable injuries. Matty Will has Julio Jones out. I feel like Matty Will. I have to call this out. I feel like Matty Will has had Julio Jones on his team for like 30 years. I think that's weird.
Since drafting in Nuggets kitchen.
Yeah, honestly.
Dalvin Cook has to get replaced.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook's not going to be playing. Jalen Waddle got hurt, I believe. I think Amon-Ra will be fine. Colton looks healthy across the board. We'll see if Justin Herbert makes a start for him next week or if he sticks with Joe Burrow. Interesting two quarterbacks to have.
That was a good move he made last week, putting Burrow above Herbert.
Yeah, we will follow this heavily to see who wins, but for right now, Matty Will is the favorite. I think that's assuming Dalvin Cook plays, so I would probably lean Colton's way if I was choosing favorites, but we'll see. The next game I have is Nugget versus Dan, Captain Phillips versus Tegrity Farm Towels, and this is actually a way closer game than you would expect. Dan is only a 2-point favorite coming into this game, so Nugget is looking to get his first win.
Well, so he does right now. He does have DeAndre Swift playing.
Oh, that's fair. That's a good call.
So when he flips that out, we'll figure out. You got to see.
Yeah. Maybe Nugget comes into this as a favorite. I think the only person he could replace him with would be Kenneth Walker, currently on his bench, and there's not very many running backs on the waiver wire. So Nugget might get his first win. We'll see.
Dan doesn't text, or I don't know if he listens to the pod, but I have several mid-tier running backs if you'd like to trade someone. So,
yeah, it's out there. Next week I'm gonna have a trade talk segment. So next week we'll see who should be traded and like hypothetical trades. Would you take this trade or not? You know. But yeah, that might be one, Kyle. A lot of people are looking for running backs. Running backs are rough this year.
A lot of very mid running backs.
Yeah, but Nugget might get his first win. You know, he's got his running backs back. If Justin Jefferson can play well, he plays New Orleans.
I think he's due for a big one. So is Debo.
Yeah, so I won't count Nugget out there, but interesting matchup to follow. We'll see if Nugget gets his first win. So next game after that, I have Kyle facing off against Nico. Golden Grinders versus AS Saint Etienne. And currently, Kyle is coming in as a 3.8 favorite. He has positional advantage in every position except for RB1 and wide receiver 1. No notable injuries, really. Nico has Hunter Renfrow out, which he might come back next week. I don't even know if he breaks his starting lineup. If he does. But Nico has an interesting team here. This is an interesting matchup. Both of you guys have players that can boom or bust, really, is what I'm getting from this. But Jalen Hurts against Kyler Murray is going to be an interesting matchup. You mentioned Terry McLaurin gets demoted, right?
I mean, again, just on paper, I think he's going to drop to the flex just so he knows that there's only one place to go. Right. But he's been a double-digit guy every week. I was hoping for a little
he doesn't have much competition on your bench as a flex position. So right now, I mean, George Pickens had a cool catch. That was pretty cool.
Man, I've got him in a couple leagues too, where there's so much. He's so talented. I don't know if it's just because Mitch Trubisky's that bad. But yeah, Pickens, he's very talented. We'll see what happens down the road with him. But all the Steelers wide receivers have been underwhelming.
Interesting storyline for this game actually is that Nico has Jamal Williams and Alexander Mattison on the bench. So let's see if that eats into any of his starting players. Currently, right now, he has Treylon Burks in the flex. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, he would have Treylon Burks in the flex and DJ Moore. Interesting to see if he subs out wide receivers for running backs. We'll see his decisions as the week goes on. But currently, Kyle's coming in as the favorite there. We'll see how that goes. I think both of you guys are 1 and 2. And then the next game I have after that is T-Mac versus Brando, excuse me. So Tennessee State versus Dan Wagon Fan. Is Tom is coming in as a heavy favorite. 11-point favorite against Dan Wagon. That's the biggest spread we have so far. Correct, Kyle. He has positional advantage everywhere except for wide receiver, tight end, and flex. Tom may not have David Montgomery playing this week. He definitely doesn't have Elijah Mitchell playing this week. However, he does have Devontae Smith on the bench. And, I mean, that's about it in terms of his bench. Tom's storyline's interesting because I'm always interested to see who he starts at defense and tight end. I think George Kittle's back for him, and I think the Buccaneers have answered those questions for him. But his flex is going to be interesting.
I just have a feeling after the way the Chiefs played last week that they are going to be they're just going to have a very good week of practice. It seems like they're going to be out to make up for the way they played last week. Tampa is really good, but I think Mahomes is going to be on one this week. Right
now, his bench defense is projected to have more. The Browns are projected at 4.7. They're playing at Atlanta, and that seems like a more favorable matchup.
Miles, I don't know if you saw. Speaking of the Browns, Myles Garrett was involved in a car accident.
I saw that. Yeah, that sucks.
I guess he's. I don't know. It says non-life-threatening injuries, but I don't know if it's be ready to play it in the NFL in 4 or 5 more days. So
damn, that stinks.
He's one of those like top tier.
Yeah, he was on Defensive Player of the Year watch before that.
He's one of the best. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah. And Brando on the flip side of things has no notable injuries really. Jarvis Landry has the toe injury we mentioned earlier. I'm interested to see if he drops Darnell Mooney. I don't know if Darnell Mooney's worth keeping anymore. I mean, maybe keep him around just because. We'll see. Jaylen Warren's an interesting pickup on the bench. He looks good. We'll see if he ends up being anything. I'll tell you what, if Najee Harris gets hurt, Jaylen Warren looks nasty.
I think Najee Harris is hurt.
Yeah, I agree.
But he's not on the list. But he does not seem to be that healthy so far this year.
Okay, and last game of the week we have is Kareem Pie versus Colpo's second boyfriend. This is Zach versus Jim. And currently, Jim is coming in as a 6.7 favorite. Both these guys will be 2-1 going in. 2 favorites to win the league currently. So this will be probably the America's matchup of the week here. Zach has positional advantage everywhere except for wide receiver, actually. Jim hasn't beat both places there. Notable injuries. Chris Godwin's probably going to be out for Zach. Mac Jones obviously won't be playing for him. And Brian Robinson is out for Jim. T. Higgins is banged up. Michael Thomas is banged up. We'll see if they make a start for him. But good matchup across the board. I would consider this an even matchup, honestly. We'll see. I think Zach's team's a little bit inflated by Nick Chubb being so good and by Clyde Edwards-Helaire being better than what he should be. Nugget mentioned in the group chat earlier it's going to be hilarious when Zach doesn't make the playoffs. So I'm not going to make a bold prediction, but I will say this. If there was a team that's projected to make the playoffs now that won't, I think it's Zach.
Yeah, you're a Nick Chubb injury away from being. I mean, he's got Travis Kelce.
He's got Travis Kelce.
Yeah, Devontae Adams. They'll get that right eventually. Mike Williams is good.
Yeah, we'll see. But I mean, I don't know if Derek Carr is going to carry him to the promised land.
He does have Damian Harris too, so that's
he does on the bench too. We did not feature those two gentlemen. Just know Ramondre Stevenson won that battle this week. That's all you guys need to know. And so that's all I got for this week. Kyle, do you have any closing statements or anything you'd like to say to the group chat before we get out of here?
Zach, please just cut the bullshit with the sex swing. We get it. Other than that, no, man. This is cool. This is a lot of fun. Keeps again something to pretend to do work for an hour or so.
Yeah. So that's all I got for this week. I want to thank Kyle for joining me. That's all I got for this week. I will see you guys next week for episode 5. We'll be looking at week 4. I'll see if I can get some new guests on the podcast. We will have a trade special targeting who we think should be traded and who shouldn't be traded. But having said that, hope you guys have a great week. I will see you next week. This has been the Skuchdown Report. Peace.